much has already been said about all the experiences we have been through during the past year. The pandemic, the closures, the events that shook our nation and the world. But more importantly, the deaths of so many loved ones. The one common denominator in each of these things is loss. The loss of health, the loss of freedom, the loss of incomes, the loss of education, the loss of connecting with our family and friends, the loss of being with loved ones when he or she passed, and the loss of grieving together at his or her funeral. It was a year of loss for everyone in one way or another. As the mayor of the city of Casper, I witnessed many different aspects of the pain people were going through, the different situations and choices people were forced to endure. I know the past year has given me greater insight and understanding for the microcosms that make up the fabric of our community. But in the midst of all the pain and chaos, I saw the glimmers of love, encouragement, and hope. People found ways to honor and support our healthcare workers and many other professions we didn't even realize were essential before the pandemic began. We became creative in our determination to connect with others, even while social distancing. I think I can safely say that we are all ready to move on, but to a more normal way of life. Before we do, let's first take this opportunity to come together and share in the grief and loss of our loved ones. Then, when we are ready, we can turn towards a future that is made brighter because we know, even in the dark times, we have a community that will go above and beyond to help each other through.
So, on March 9th, 2020, the date that changed the function of the health department and my leadership, a note of point was I was hired to be the director in July of 2019, so not even a year into my position. I was just beginning to find my way. I used to think how busy I was every day. Early on, there were meetings at the Emergency Operations Center after we learned about COVID and all of its many forms. It was put into place with fire, police, public health, leadership, and key partners. I can remember going to one of the first meetings very wide-eyed, dehydrated, pretty much terrified, and yes, admit overwhelmed. My backpack was undone, my computer was hanging out, and a firefighter recognized my distress, took my backpack, sat me in a chair, and gave me a bottle of water. It was at that time I knew we were all in this together and we didn't have all the answers. As a community, we lost a lot. We lost time, family, time-honored events, and the way we function both professionally, personally, and in our community. You might remember we canceled a basketball tournament, but have gained a great partner in the Wyoming High School Activities Association that will allow us to come and do a vaccine clinic at the state track. So we've recovered and healed that relationship. The partnerships that we have in the community now versus then are tremendous and has brought attention to public health in a whole new way. The school district and Casper College instantly stepped forward, offering personnel, resources, buildings, whatever we needed. One of our largest skilled nursing facilities had a large outbreak, and at time we knew it was bad, and we lost over 20 residents. Those were our mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, friends, sisters, neighbors, and cousins. I too experienced a loss. My uncle, who was very special to me, was transported to Wyoming Medical Center during the summer. He lived alone with his dog on Boyson Lake, surrounded by the things that he knew and loved. It was determined that he could no longer live alone. He never had the opportunity to go home and say goodbye. Instead, he was transported to Life Care, where they worked tirelessly to protect their residents. We often went in there to do mass testing events, and I would cheat and go in just so I could see my uncle. I would assist with the testing. You see, he had dementia and never fully understood what happened to him or why he lived where he did. In December, he contracted COVID and he died on his 87th birthday. We will finally be able to have his service on Memorial Weekend. Many of my coworkers experienced losses too and were not able to see their loved ones before they passed or have a funeral to say their goodbyes. We made thousands of phone calls to answer questions, do contact tracing. For a department that runs 50 employees, we now operate over 100. We did over 16,466 COVID tests, did 31 off-site outreach clinics for testing, over 12,090 contact tracing interviews. My staff worked endless hours, would plan to do one thing, and then it would shift to something else. They stayed in the office, they went out, they did whatever was required. We've had threats, people screaming at us, but we also had some very grateful people. One particular event that comes to mind is two ladies who played dominoes every week. They hadn't seen each other from March through December. They came in for their vaccines on the same time, same date, just so that they could see each other in person. Their faces made it all worthwhile. They giggled like they were schoolgirls getting the greatest gift of all, because they knew with the vaccine they could spend time together and play dominoes once again. We have to thank the community members, those that made masks and gowns for us and other healthcare providers. Those businesses that changed on a dime and made hand sanitizer, for example. Those that brought us food and treats, donated time and money. I've lived in Casper my whole life, one of those rare natives. There was always someone coming forward asking how to help. Even though we think we're a big city, we're also a community. We have to say thank you to everyone who sacrificed in what we lost. Wearing face coverings, following orders, staying home when they were sick, and missing out on work, income, and even getting vaccinated. We have hope, and we have something that can help us move forward as we return to a day that allows us to work, play, and enjoy life to its fullest, to come together and even celebrate today. We want to get to the point that we can enjoy life to its fullest. It's been one of the hardest things to deal with, and the hardest challenge of all, but for my colleagues and I, we come to work every day in the hopes of making a difference and helping navigate in this new world. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I can't even begin to put into words all the things that have been lost as far as our lives as we once knew it, those that were special and that we loved tremendously. I can't speak for all of the healthcare providers, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today, as there are many emotions, thoughts, ideas, wishes, dreams, and hardships in my mind. It's hard to keep it all focused with how fast time goes. We'll continue to be there to prevent, protect, and promote health and well-being, always looking for opportunities to help the community get past all of this.
November 7th, 2020, we lost a great man in the Casper community due to COVID-19. That man was John Whitaker. Not only was John my best friend and amazing husband, but he was a dedicated father to our children, Sam, Danielle, Catherine, as well as his nephews, Tad and Fountain, and our little 16-year-old long-haired dachshund, Virgil. Boy, did he love that dog. He had a Fitbit on that dog, and when he was in the hospital, he would text me or call me and say, Virgil didn't get all his steps in today. Well, he's getting them now, John. He was very connected with his brother Terry, who was John's go-to person to solve the world's problems. Now, those were some interesting and funny conversations. John was also a friend to many in this community. He always found good in people and tried to focus on the positive. I'm sure my daughter Danielle might have a little to say about the positive. Little things like spilling coffee on the white carpet. He always made us laugh, that's for sure. When I was asked to speak about healing, it took me by surprise. Healing, I thought. How can I talk about healing while going through this tremendous grief? Grief is a funny thing. It makes you feel like you're the only person in the world that could be feeling this way. Nobody else would understand because I'm the only person in the world that this has happened to. This couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, I've had friends over the years that have lost spouses, siblings, parents, partners, friends, and worst of all, children. My heart always went out to them. But until now, I never understood the depth of what they were going through. Out of nowhere, it feels like a punch in the gut that takes your breath away. But I will say that in my case, once your breath returns, and the uncontrollable tears subside, I can also find and feel a sense of calm and strength. And in all likelihood, the healing is doing its job. I feel John's loving voice saying, "You've got this, Margie." I am in amazement, but not really surprised at some of the wonderful people that have reached out to our family and have stepped up with no questions asked. The Buddha teaches that all humans are alike in their desire for happiness and love. This is true in our attempt to find balance, peace, and happiness. It's better, in my view, to feel pain than feel nothing at all. To me, it means you love deeply. Unfortunately, most likely, we will all be in grief's grip someday, as this is the natural progression of life. Yes, John was taken from us way too early, and in a manner that shouldn't have happened. We have this wonderful community in Casper. The word unity is in community, and unfortunately, I think we've lost some of our unity over this past year of hardship. I hope we can once again find the Casper unity and grow in the healing process. John was born and raised in Casper and liked to call it our little shire. Yes, Lord of the Rings trilogy was one of his favorites. This world is in disarray and divided like never before. Let's protect each other from any more unnecessary sickness and death due to this evil virus. At least that is something we have some control over. A simple vaccine is the kind of thing to do for our community in the healing process. To me, it's all about human kindness.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. All the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty together again. A year ago, everything changed forever. When someone dear to us dies, our lives change forever. And when the world completely changes too, it doesn't make sense. We are overwhelmed. We cry out, "What happened?" And we might add a few choice words to that too. And we can't put things together again. We were deprived of human structures. When someone dies, it is the ultimate loss of control. For all our human abilities, we cannot control or stop death. Yet the powers we do have in this time were stripped from us too. The presence to be with our loved ones, gathering in groups for support and comfort, and gathering as a community in the rituals of funeral and celebrations of life. When we see the destruction, the damage, and despair lying at the foot of the wall, all the broken pieces, emotionally, spiritually, we were not ready for this. We did not know what to expect. We've never done this before. And now we are left with this mess, this loss. And the people who speak in cliches will say, when life gives you a broken egg, make an omelet. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I say no. These cliches, these toss-away words, do not acknowledge or validate your experience. You don't want omelets. You don't want lemonade. You want your loved one back. You want your life back. Whole and unblemished, the way it was. Even if it was complicated, at least you could navigate it. But we can't have that. What is left to us? To find out how to live again. In a world where your loved one is not physically present. Where is that? In Humpty Dumpty's story and in ours, life happens atop the wall. But we look down at the pieces scattered at our feet. Everything has fallen. How can we leave here where everything was shattered? Where we lost those nearest and dearest to us? When everything has gone wrong, when we looked for our loved ones in the broken pieces, it is nearly impossible to believe there is a way back to the top, to the place where we can imagine life again. Well, the first thing we have to realize is that our loved ones are not in the broken pieces. Your loved one is in you.